America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and we're doing the endorsement show. There was a little bit of a snafu, so it's not going to be live, but it's going to be good. Just kind of like live, except good. What we're going to do is going to walk through the ballot I'm going to face, plus a few extra races, on the May 22nd election. And it's going to be wonderful, so you're going to want to tell all of your friends and share this video with all of your people. And right now, Matthew, do you mind hitting the beat?
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
I'm Osei-Frimpong, and we're back on. Some feelings are gonna get hurt in the next, 45 minutes or so, but it's okay because everyone's gonna learn things about things, and we're going to be a better electorate for your time. Let's talk about the governor's race. First, we're gonna start at the top of the ticket and then work down. I'm in Athens, Georgia, so the governor's race, executive branch. Stacey Abrams and Stacey Evans are the two relevant candidates for most of the people watching this broadcast. Now, I know it's very confusing. Put the two Staceys up. Give me the two Staceys. So here are the two Staceys, Stacey Abrams and Stacey Evans. I'll make sure there's Stacey Abrams and there's Stacey Evans. I know my people, it's possible we'll get a little bit confused here. Stacey Abrams is the black one, and Stacey Evans is the Jewish one. Just to get that clear, if that matters to you in terms of voting, we don't want to make a mistake. So there's two Staceys. Stacey Abrams, I met and we had a one-on-one. She's incredibly smart. Anyone who tells you Stacey Abrams does not know what she's doing is lying to you. Because for my entire adult life, I've been around smart people, and she is one of them. So everything works. If she's not saying something, it's because she's decided not to say something, and that's too bad for us because I'd like her to be saying much more. Why I'm for Stacey Abrams over Stacey Evans is because Stacey Abrams understands that the black community in Georgia, and remember, the black community in Georgia is 30% of the state of Georgia, many of whom are descendants of slaves. Although many of the ones who talk are descendants of recent immigrants. It's bad. Descendants of slaves work, descendants of recent immigrants talk. We've seen that written large. For example, my mom's side is a descendant of a slave. My dad's side, my dad came from Ghana in '68. There's some who come on boats because, that's how black people were brought to America. And then there are other black people who were brought on planes. We can't have too many black people who are brought on planes speaking for black people. I don't think that's particularly good for descendants of slaves. Listen to me, but also listen to other people who are in defense of descendants of slaves. So one thing that Stacey Abrams knows that Stacey Evans almost rejects is that the problem with black businesses and black life in Georgia is a matter of capitalization, right? Stacey Evans is arguing that, we just give black people better tuition breaks in college and everything will be fine. It could be a Hope Scholarship in terms of trade education or extending it in the University of Georgia. That's not sufficient. The problem isn't the inputs, it's the system. It doesn't matter how much trade education you have. You're not going to get that roofing contract when it's going to Cletus's cousin. That's how the situation is in Georgia. It's not a matter of the education of our workforce. That's a con. There's a great book by Gordon Laffer called The Job Training Charade that pretty much says that job training and the idea that black people aren't trained and there's a problem with job training is an enormous charade that's concocted to actually be a matter of political control, because if people knew how few solidly middle-class professional jobs are naturally in the economy, or as arranged in the economy, versus how many people need them, then there would be upheaval. And so job training is a political trick to get away from doing politics. I'll say that again. The idea that job training education will solve, especially the racial wealth gap, but in general poverty in America, is a trick to get away from the quality of politics we need to actually make poor communities whole and black communities to get them justice, right? So Stacey Evans is saying just more elaborate job training will do the job. Stacey Abrams saying, like, no, we just need to give these people money. We need like serious capitalization problems because even if you have the right degrees, you are not, and you know, Stacey Abrams has a lot of the degrees. So even if you have the right degrees, you just don't have the quality of capital to compete with white capital in America. And that's why we're locked out of the economy. And the reasons we don't have that kind of capital are for political reasons in the history of America. So that means a quality of politics that will get us a capital will actually make the situation whole. We have a political problem, we have a political solution. Stacey Evans, as opposed to Stacey Evans, who says like, oh no, you just need more cheaper plumbing classes. No, you'll get your certification. You still won't get that job because you don't go to the right church with the people who hand out the contracts for that job. So this is what's at stake. So this is why I'm voting for Stacey Abrams, if for no other reason than Abrams understands that the problem is a matter of capital, not education. It's a matter of capital, not education. I do not think this is the most important race on my ballot because I think they're both flawed candidates for a variety of reasons. But I'm going with Abrams because Abrams talks in terms of capital. Evans talks in terms of, well, you know, if we just kind of improve schools, black people will stop being descendants of slaves. That's just not true. Next race. The congressional race. So we went to a race that everyone thinks is important, but is not very important, to a race that is very important. And too many good people don't appreciate how important this next race is. So the congressional race in District 10 between 3 Democrats, right? Richard Dien Winfield, Charles Montgomery, and Tabitha Johnson Green. Richard Dien Winfield, can you just find a way to put all 3 of the pictures? Yeah. All right. So, Richard Dien Winfield, Charles Montgomery, and Tabitha Johnson Green. We'll first start with Tabitha Johnson Green, who, by the few accounts who've actually contacted her, seems to be a lovely human being out of Sandersonville, Georgia. She's a registered nurse, and she's running for Congress. And she seems to be a lovely human being. She doesn't have a website. She kind of has a Facebook page. She needs a campaign. She needs a campaign infrastructure that's been wanting. And she's also hard to get a hold of. I've had many people from both campaigns and from me to try to get a hold of someone in her operation, and it's not happening. So while she's running on healthcare and education. She wants better healthcare and she wants better education. Like, these are both things I care about, but like from what I can get, and I put in due diligence as a voter and someone who cares about this race. From what I can get, I just can't get enough information about her platform. So if there wasn't anyone else running, I'm like, yeah, she's a nurse. My mom was a nurse, like Tabitha Johnson Green. But there actually is someone who has an incredible platform, and we're going to talk about that later. So keep Tabitha Johnson Green's up there. And now put Richard Dien Winfield. The middle of, he's like, they're surrounded by people, and then like itty bitty Winfield. All right, so there should be a picture of him and Sujata, his wife, Sujata Winfield.
Yeah, I did see that.
All right. So use that picture instead. We'll get to that one later. Okay. So Richard Dien Winfield is also running for Congress in that district, and he's running on the kind of platform we need. When I say the kind of platform we need, at the state level, and this is important because this is going to be a recurring thing. At the state level, it's going to be about contracts and workers. Who's going to get black businesses contracts? Who's going to get black workers a say in their working conditions? Because right now, black business owners are locked out, and black workers are treated like slaves. So we need black businesses in the economic wealth of this country, and we need black workers treated like actual employees. Because, there's nothing wrong with being an employee. There are many white employees who do very well. They have benefits. They have vacation time. They have weekends and set schedules. Some of them have salaries. So there's nothing wrong with being an employee. The problem is somehow when you're a black employee, you don't get any of those other things. Like, you don't get a freedom wage. You don't get a vacation time. You get a lot of fragility because you have to make your white boss nervous. And let's be honest, you have a white boss. So like, and especially like I've talked to a lot of, like I'm a very average sized black man. If you're like a big black guy, like you need to like not take up space in order to get a job. So you talk to the black guys who are like 6'2" and 6'4" and like a little bit bigger. They have a hard time getting jobs because they make people nervous, and you can't make the customer nervous. And that's got nothing to do with them. That's got everything to do with America. So black workers need to actually be treated like empowered workers, not slaves. They're just employees. Nothing wrong with being an employee. And black businesses need to get a share of those contracts. That's what you do at state level. That's what you do at the county level. Now, at the federal level, you have a bigger arsenal. And this is what Winfield knows. Winfield knows that at the federal level, what we need is a federal job guarantee. Why do we need a federal job guarantee? I'm going to go into that later. But he knows we need a federal job guarantee because we just have... And you need a source of income in order to exercise your rights. I'm going to go into the argument a little bit later once I get to the last candidate. But you simply need a source of income to exercise your rights. You don't have a freedom of speech. You don't have a right to a freedom of speech if you can't afford a lawyer when you get sued for your speech, or if you can't afford the quality of platform that will not be susceptible to your political enemies. So everything costs in America because that's why they call it America. And Winfield knows that if you don't have a right to a job, then you don't really have the right to exercise all of the other rights. So he's like, look, we need to just guarantee people a job, and we need to guarantee people a job at a real wage, not a living wage, because we're not in here just to live and then die, at a fair wage, which actually allows you to, one, take a fair share of the productivity of America, and also, like, do things. I always tell the story about my friends who were both poor and in New York when they were young. And, like, they're like, New York, it's the greatest town in the world. But when you're poor, you're not going to Hamilton. You're like, you can't take advantage of, like, what it's like to be in New York, right? You're just poor. You might as well be, someplace else. So he understands that in order to exercise rights in America, you need to be able to access to money. You need to be able to sell your work for money, and that work needs to be at a fair price. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to talk about the last. And he also believes in, the regular healthcare stuff. He also has a great idea about legal care, which means if you don't have access to a lawyer, you don't really have rights in America, is what he's saying. If you don't have access to a lawyer, you don't have rights to America. And this whole legalese or legal aid based on charity isn't sufficient. And with these overworked public defenders, that's still not sufficient. So we need a public option for lawyers, like a real public option for lawyers, which means if you need to see a lawyer for anything, you should be able to see a lawyer as a matter of right. And you should get the appropriate team of lawyers, not just like a Band-Aid. You need the appropriate team for lawyers, because if you don't have access to a lawyer, then you don't really have rights, because the court is where all the other rights are worked out. So then we have... what's up?
You want this one?
Chalice Montgomery? Yeah, just give me a picture of Chalice Montgomery.
Okay.
All right, so... No. We have then we have Chalice Montgomery, who is also running. Now, she is the darling of the Democratic Party because she's the right kind of Democrat for the white moderates. So when I say the right kind of Democrat for the white moderates, I'm saying that she's the quality of Democrats who will not advocate for programs for black people, or the quality of even race-neutral programs that will actually make the black community whole. There's a great part of and I quoted this section of the letter from Birmingham jail on my Facebook, and now I'm in Facebook jail because someone was so offended by my take on King that they complained to the powers that Facebook be. And now I'm in Facebook jail for 30 days. But there's a great quote about how The problem that Martin Luther King wrote when he was in jail, that the problem with the movement right now isn't so much the Ku Klux Klan. We can handle them. The problem is the white moderates who think they're allies, but then always put a timetable on our freedom. So unless we deal with the white moderates, they will always be telling us to wait. Wait, wait. So the white moderates in the Democratic Party right now are saying Talis Montgomery is great because she's the kind of Democrat who tells black people to wait for their freedom. And you know, I've done multiple videos about the problem with nonprofits deciding when black people should be able to exercise our rights. I've done multiple videos on that, and we can't have governance by nonprofits because nonprofit boards are made up of people, and then if all of our rights are secured by nonprofits and at the leisure of nonprofits, that means our rights are secured by their charity, which is a problem because what if I want to contest them? All right, so we need, like, I need a job where I can pay for my own stuff, so I don't need a nonprofit. I need to be able to exercise my own rights and have my rights not be guaranteed by some charity, but be guaranteed by my government as a matter of right. So everyone has them. The problem is, would you believe the same people on those charity boards like Talis Montgomery? So like the problem is deep. These white moderates are really screwing up any chance of getting the quality of political advocacy we need for black people to be whole. All right, so white moderates, you're a problem. You're a problem. You thought I was joking about you when I was just saying you're writing checks to charities as opposed to putting the quality of political pressure on our elected officials to guarantee us the resources to be whole. No, you're a problem because you even back Democratic candidates who tell black people to wait. Now, I want to say that this is important because this is a federal race. And at the federal level, there are only really 3 programs that will make black people whole in the United States. One of them, and there are only 2 that are race neutral. And I say this because Derek Hamilton and Sandy Darity, 2 wealth economists, one at the New School, one at Duke, have done the work. And really, there are only 2 race neutral programs that will do something for black America. One of them is the federal job guarantee. The other one is a program called baby bonds. We actually have a candidate who's running on the federal job guarantee. And not just this one. The federal job guarantee is actually taking steam because Kirsten Gillibrand, can you give me, I might not have a picture. Kirsten Gillibrand, the senator from New York, came out and said she's in support of a federal job guarantee because, she's looking into it. Yeah, no, she came out in support of it because we need to ensure to give power to workers and secure a wage floor. And also, when you test the federal job guarantee, it gets 71% in Georgia. I'll say that again. The federal job guarantee, when tested, poll tested, has a 71% approval, which means it's popular. The problem is people don't think other people think it's popular, right? Like the idea that people should work for a living is a pretty popular idea, but people don't think that other people will go for it. So although that's one of the handful of programs that will actually make black people whole in the United States, a federal job guarantee and Winfield's running one for $20 an hour. What's this? Yeah, it's Kirsten. It's Gillibrand. This is Kirsten Gillibrand in support of a federal job guarantee. She's not the only one. There are a handful of other Congress people running on a federal job guarantee. So white women, you get your white woman. Just not like Montgomery. You get Kirsten Gillibrand in 2020. Because if Gillibrand comes out with a federal job guarantee, I will do an entire show about why we should back Kirsten Gillibrand. What's funny is I think she's doing it because Kamala Harris is also running, so she can't just say, like, I'm a woman, you have to vote for me. She actually has to come up with the quality of politics we need. And she's doing it. So, like, thank you, Kirsten Gillibrand, for coming up. Thank you, Kirsten Gillibrand, for coming up with the quality of politics we need. Do not confuse Kirsten Gillibrand's one with Talis Montgomery's, because it's not that, right? So give me the 3 candidates again. So I think Talis Montgomery is the most basic Democrat and basic Democrats for black people. And can I get the Kerner from commission. Last week's show, the Kerner Commission, 50 years and then 100 years?
Mark has might crash because it does that a lot when you load images that are like over like 50 images. I think we're at like 36 images.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, the Kerner Commission was a commission that came out in 1967 to study how do we have federal policies that'll stop these riots, because black people were getting too mad, so they were rioting. And they came out with a commission. Turns out that the ghettos are the result of federal policy. Federal policy made the ghettos. And also, black people aren't doing so well. So 50 years later, they did a retrospective. 50 years after 1968, when the commission came out with its report, is 2018. And it turns out we are doing the same. We're still doing poorly in home ownership, still doing poorly in the labor participation rate, and we're doing a little bit worse in incarceration. We incarcerate more black people per 10,000 than we did back in 68. So 50 years of basic Democrat hasn't done anything. And I say this as a person who spent a lot of time in the Bay Area, home of Nancy Pelosi. San Francisco is not the friend of the black man. They're 56% of the jail population, while only being about 6% of the population. Black people are 6% of the population in San Francisco, 56% of the jail population. And that's run by Democrats. In California, it's Democrats all the way down. So when I hear basic Democrat, I'm not particularly... I do not believe that will be our salvation. I'm also from Chicago, where the black Democrats are just as corrupt as the white Democrats because all the money is like wealthy white. So just being a Democrat is not sufficient. You need to be a Democrat who advocates for the quality of policies that will make us whole. And Richard Dien Winfield is a Democrat who's advocating for the quality of policies that will make us whole. That's very important. Not to the people backing Chalice Montgomery. They don't care about us being whole. One thing I've noticed about white moderates, they think we deserve to be poor. Like that's what's I think like King was a little bit nicer than he needed to be. He actually thinks they think we deserve to be poor. And that's what's most disgusting. And they think they're better than us just because that's why they have money. So like that's why they want the charity model, because they think they know how to create justice, and they think black people, the generational poverty, is deserved by us. So your white moderates, even if they're your allies, if they have a Richard Dien Winfield sign or button on, they're your real allies. If they have a Chalice Montgomery sign in front of their house, that just means that they're your class enemies. They don't care if you stay poor for another. They don't care if there's a 100-year Kerner report and you're still broke. They don't care because they think black people, they deserve to be poor. They like their black people like Obama, who was just kind of singing Amazing Grace and had a nice smile. They don't care about generational poverty. And those are your Chalice Montgomery voters. They might pretend to be woke or whatever, but they actually don't want you to share. They don't want to share power with you, and they don't think the government owes you anything. And real quickly, I'm going to talk for another minute about this race. Montgomery called a meeting with a bunch of labor people in town. So she called a meeting with a bunch of labor people, went to the meeting with a bunch of labor people. And you know what she proposed at this meeting with the union? She proposed that tax credits for businesses as the quality of federal policy that will actually make the black community whole. That will not do it. She proposed tax credits for the ERA. She proposed tax credits for businesses and the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, which is great for women CEOs in white companies who want to make as much as, because if you're a CEO in a black company, you already make as much as all your employees because you don't have any employees. like that's just math. like let's be honest. You don't have any employees. So this isn't. So the ERA is about making sure white women make as much as white men. At the upper level, right? So if you're a preschool teacher, the Equal Rights Amendment doesn't do anything because as you go farther down on the employment rung, the work is gender segregated. So making sure that female plumbers get paid like male plumbers doesn't exactly do what you think it would do. Or making sure that female preschool teachers get paid like male preschool teachers isn't going to do anything. Since what we do, since we're still CNAs, preschool teachers, if we're nurses, we're unionized, thanks be. But since our jobs are still at the gender segregated level, black people, the Equal Rights Amendment doesn't do it for us. That's not going to get us equality of justice. So I'm in support of men getting paid as women and men getting paid the same. But I'm also in support of certified nursing assistants actually getting paid a real wage. You pay certified nursing assistants $19, $20 an hour. That'll do something for Black America. Same with domestic workers. Same with farm workers. So she went into this meeting talking about the ERA and tax credits for businesses, which means that you don't actually know employment issues in America. So what? And I'm thinking how do I explain to people that we really have? So I know Richard Dean Winfield knows this because he wrote a book on this. He wrote a book on this, the just economy. And so if you ask Richard Dean Winfield about what you need for the economy to be whole, he'll say look, there's some fundamental problems in the economy that have to do with the fact that in order to participate in a market economy, you need money, you need access to money, so you need a job. Unless you have property that you can put on the market, you need to put your labor on the market. All right? You need a job. You need to put your labor on the market as a commodity. People buy your labor, and then you spend that money and you can participate in the market society. However, since black people were made landless and dependent, our labor is cheap, right? There isn't really a floor, and we need to be able to sell something in order to be able to participate in the market society. And all we have is our labor. So we end up selling our labor too cheap. All right? So in order to actually participate in the market economy, which is America, we need to be able to sell our labor at a fair price. And that's why you need a federal job guarantee. So that's what Richard Dean Winfield would say about a federal job guarantee. It allows people to sell the one commodity they have, their labor, at a fair price and not be exploited because of the fact that if they don't sell their labor, they starve to death or they die from exposure. So that's the one thing, so in order for everyone to be able to participate in the market society, everyone needs to be able to sell their labor at a fair price. And we can do that with a federal job guarantee, making roads or reading to old people or cleaning their gutters or shrinking school sizes, class sizes. And honestly, in 10 years when they have self-driving cars, 1.8 million workers are going to be out of a job. 1.8 million haulers and truckers are going to be out of a job. We need a policy in place that can handle that, all right? So a federal job guarantee can do that, and we can dig ditches for broadband in rural Georgia. So that'll happen. So if you ask Richard Dean Winfield about workers, he'll tell you that. He'll tell you that. And he'll also say that those federal job people need to be unionized, because if the federal job isn't unionized, then their employer, the government, also has a complete power over their working conditions. And that's not good. All right? So to separate the relationship between employer and employee and to understand the imbalance, we don't just want to go to a private employer that exploits us to a government employer that exploits us. We need the workers to be able to have a say in their working conditions as a distinct lobby from their employer, which is the government. So you need these federal jobs to be unionized, and that's why you have unionized postal workers, unionized teachers, unionized sanitation workers. Because just because the government is your employer doesn't mean they're going to be a fair employer. Right? And that's what separates a union as a social group that advocates for workers from governance, which is supposed to look out for everybody. So insofar as Montgomery was looking out for business owners, that's part of her job. But insofar as she was looking out for business owners at the expense of workers, that she was doing badly at her job. Right? So as a congressman, you want your congressman to think of the whole and justice for the whole, the employers and the employees. and understand that right now there's a market imbalance in the relationship between employers and employees. So you need to like give employees more power in the market, in the labor market. So as a congressman, you need to think of the whole. And I know Richard thinks of the whole, Winfield thinks of the whole, because he understands the need for family law because he wrote a book on the just family. All right? So he understands the reason why a marriage, the good thing about a marriage is I opened it like randomly. This is a great book. It's hard reading. I'm not going to lie. It's hard reading. But he understands. And so I just opened it last night when I was thinking about the show, and he says, he wrote this, I think, in 96. It's great. What rather is essential to marital freedom is the ability of each spouse to have an equal say in the running of the household, including not only the use of property and earnings and how children will be raised, but also the decision of who may be admitted into the family as an additional spouse, whether in a monogamous or a polygamous relationship. So this is Winfield talking about giving the structure for like a just family. And this structure, he says, like can work in polygamous relationship or a monogamous relationship, because the important thing in a just marriage is equality and co-determination of the household. Like Winfield worked this out over the course of the book 20 years ago, right? Like this is the just family. And in a way that allows, you need the family organized in a way that also allows for a just economy. So people need, bereavement and family leave and childcare in order for the just economy to work. And we need laws that secure this. So Winfield wrote another book called The Just State, right? So you have to understand that when people say that they're somewhat similar in terms of quality Democrats, it's just like not true. It's just not true. Because in this, he writes about, for all this to work, you need the quality of governance that like secures workers' rights, that secures workers' rights and family rights. So you need and you need this, and you need people need to have access to lawyers and the law in order to participate as a matter of right. And I know he knows that because he wrote another book on law and civil society, on the role of law in making all of this work, right? And these are not bad books. These are not, like, most of the good things you've heard me say are actually Winfield, like, warmed over and made black. Like, the good things you've heard me say about freedom, it's actually Winfield kind of worked through for a black audience, because he'll write this entire book but like not have a single metaphor. So I had to have my metaphor of the house about going into someone. So he's a very, very, very bright guy. And people say like, oh, I don't know, this all sounds kind of socialist. No, he's a capitalist. He just thinks that people need capital in order to participate in capitalism. And like black people, we don't have capital, so we need schemes that actually secure capital for black people. Like he's a capitalist. He says, but capitalism doesn't work if like there's a whole segment of people who don't have capital. So what people can do to earn capital, they need to be able to do it in order to earn capital. So he's like, no, Marx is wrong. Marx is wrong. He doesn't take competition and marketing seriously. And he was like, if you don't understand, I'll write an entire book about how Marx was wrong. So he wrote a whole book about like, no, capitalism's awesome if you secure the means for people to actually have capital. You can't be, and it's going to have inequalities because you can't have a capitalist society or a market economy without inequalities. But those inequalities can't be predatory, which means no one should be able to overwhelm someone with, or scare someone with like lawsuits. Like in a capitalist society, you should have enough capital to be able to secure your rights so that you're not just a tool of someone with more capital. So like Winfield is a superior candidate for a myriad of reasons. And if you want more people talking like I am right now, you get this guy through the primary. Right? Because then you have him on National Public Radio and on PBS, like making these arguments and more people talking like this. And that's how you get a Kerner Commission retrospective in 50 years that say that black people have actually improved. Because without these policies at the federal level, black people nationwide will never be made whole. And nobody who's poor will ever be made whole. And if you don't control the media apparatus, they'll be made to blame themselves. And that's the danger, right? So if you want more people talking like me, and I'll say this, I didn't say this about the Evans race. Not only should you support Winfield, you should talk to everybody about supporting Winfield. Talk to everybody you know. You should go to Winfield's platform page. And he's got a lot of ideas. When he talks about voter suppression, he's not just talking about black people in Florida. He's talking about we need polls in prisons. We need to figure out what to do with Puerto Rico because they either need senators and to actually be voting members of the Senate, and same with people in Washington, D.C. All of the protectorates they either need senators, or they need to have a final independence vote so they can be sovereign nations. Because right now, this whole American colonialism isn't working for anybody except the banks. So that's what he talks about when he talks about voter suppression. He's talking about we need polls in prisons, because just because you've been locked up for some reason doesn't mean you should be alienated from your vote. You're not alienated from any of your other rights. You know, they don't annul your marriage. Usually the marriage ends for different reasons once you get found out. But they don't annul your marriage just because you get locked up. So you shouldn't be alienated from your vote. You're not alienated from your property. Like your house, they don't civil forfeiture is a different thing. But in general, when you get locked up, it doesn't mean that all of your rights get taken away. But we've chosen to take away felons' voting rights, and that's just not right. That's just not appropriate. And he talks about a little bit of that in Law and Civil Society. So you want someone making these arguments to the people, and Talis Montgomery's not making them, and Tabitha Johnson Green's not making them. Richard Dean Winfield is making them. But the white liberals and the white moderates who are supporting Talis Montgomery don't care. They don't care. They don't care if black people stay poor forever, as long as they stay on charity. Like Winfield's running for jobs, and these people are running for charity. So just remember, anytime you see a Talis Montgomery sign or a button, that person is your class enemy. They don't care if your cousin stays broke forever. Right? Next race is, I said top of the ticket, right? So we should start with mayor? Yeah, all right. All right, so the mayor of Athens. 3 people are running for mayor. We have Harry Sims, Kelly Girtz, and Richie Knight running for mayor. That's Harry Sims. Harry Sims and I have a shared history, and so far we were both long jumpers. People are like, Harry Sims was a college long jumper at UGA, one of the first varsity athletes, and he was a long jumper. I was a long jumper throughout high school and a minute in college till my back. And anyway, so I put one over. I had the high school record for about almost a year and a half till someone broke it. I had 21 foot, 11 and a half inches. That's a respectable long jump. 21, yeah, no, you guys thought I was a scrub. No, that was pretty good. 21 foot, 11 and a half inches. My triple jump was 43.11. That's the one I want back because I think if I think about the jump differently, I could probably get some more feet out of it. But 43.11 triple jump, 21.11 long jumper. So yeah, so Harry and I share that. What we don't share is the idea that black poverty is a matter of choices. And Harry, all right, so here's the deal. We're going to run through a lot of politicians who are going to run on their years and years of service. The problem is the poverty rate for Athens has only grown over the course of years, and nobody admits that, they might have been part of the problem. So anyone who's running on years and years of service but isn't saying that, maybe I screwed up, and maybe I'm going at it wrong, I have a problem with them because I think you need to not be so self-satisfied. Not necessarily hate yourself. You need the happy middle where you're just like a work in progress. Not self-satisfied with everything you've done, especially when the poverty rate's gotten worse. And not we can't do anything. No, we can do something, just not what you've been doing. But just understand that, like, as a political body, we are a work in progress. And if we'd been better about it, maybe we would have thought differently about county-city consolidation. Maybe we would have gotten a better deal on the Olympics contracts or distributed the money more fairly. So Harry doesn't want to think about any of that. He thinks like it's just choices. If everyone would have made the same choices I've had, they would have been just fine. The problem is Harry was also a teacher in Clark County school districts for decades before he became a council commissioner. And the thing is, integration fired a lot of black teachers. Not just like a few. Integration of the schools fired a lot of black teachers. They weren't going to take all of the teachers, all of the black teachers. They took Harry, though. So, honestly, I got to wonder what choices he made to be the one boy who lived in the purging. He might have had a scar on his face. Like, they killed all the black teachers except for Harry. So, like, the quality of choices he made might not be the quality of choices. It's like he won the Hunger Games, and his saying is like, well, you just should have been a winner like me. So, like, for every Harry who made the cut between integration and segregation and integrated schools, there are tens of black teachers who are more than qualified who got shown the door. And that wasn't about their choices, that was about politics. And maybe Harry was on the line trying to get them their jobs back and saying, like, no, you need to hire all my people or none of them. But I don't think so. I suspect that wasn't the case. I think Harry just probably said, whoop. They'll find other jobs. And, 40 years later, it turns out a lot of those people and their kids are broke. So if it's all about choices, you can't choose to only have one slot and like 30 people who want the job, even if you won the job. Like that's not about choices. It's only about having one slot for a black teacher, and they chose you because they were the one they got along with. So it's not just about choices, it's about politics. And we'll talk about that later on when we talk about school board elections, because we confuse people. And telling them it's about choices actually just gets, once again, black people blaming themselves. So it's complicated with Harry, because I know he grew up in a lot of time, and he grew up in a hard time, and his politics are a product of not just his generation, because other people had better politics that are of his generation, they just didn't get the job. They had a harder time of it. But I taught hop. And so now we're done with Harry. I'm going to give you my pick afterwards. Let's talk about Kelly. So Kelly Girtz is the white people, the white mayoral candidate. Can you put a picture of Kelly? Did he screw up? That's Tommy. He's the other white guy. There's a difference. I'm not saying you all look the same, but sometimes my intern gets confused. I'm not saying you all look the same. I'm saying sometimes my intern gets confused. The other white guy. There's a difference. There's a difference. What's up? Kelly Girtz is, you're doing great, Matthew. Kelly Girtz is, he's a teacher in one of these schools, one of the local schools. I like the idea of teachers becoming politicians for a variety of reasons, if they're the right kind of teacher doing the right kind of politics. He is the kind of progressive who knows things, but needs to be made to say things. And that's kind of a troublesome progressive, because sometimes I want to sleep. I don't need to always put my pressure. Like sometimes I want to take a break. I don't get to sleep as a black man. Sometimes black people need to sleep too. We can't always sometimes I want to be able to leave the store without my cashier stealing. That's what Kelly Girtz is. So he knows enough. He knows what courage is and recognizes in other people. Does he actually have the backbone to have it himself? I don't think so. By the way, if that came off a little bit smooth, it's because Eleanor Roosevelt said that about JFK. I can't trust a man who knows what courage is and can recognize it in other people but doesn't have the backbone to have it himself. Which is actually an awful thing to say about Kennedy because he had a bad back. But about Kelly Girtz, I actually feel comfortable saying that this is a guy who knows better. And I know he knows about land grabs. And I know he knows about the county's role in taking black people's wealth over the last 50 years. But does he have the backbone to actually advocate for us? Well, he's been in office for a while, and his advocating for black people has been tepid. And remember, at this level, at this stage, we're talking about contracts and employees. All right? So where's Kelly been on getting black people contracts, and where's Kelly been on getting black employees paid? Not paid poverty wages. Because I have white people saying like, well, you know, if you can get $9 an hour, that's a good job. The white people who say this always make more than $9 an hour. But they consider themselves liberal. Or like if they don't, they have parents who are like really professionals. They're like, well, you know, I only make $8 an hour. But yeah, but your parents paid for the down payment on your house. Like, well, your wedding. So like your kind of poverty isn't the kind of poverty I'm talking about. So Kelly hasn't been there for the fight. He hasn't been there for the fight. And while he can be made to be more progressive on certain issues, like he did pretty decent work on the Civil Rights Task Force, and I kind of understood some of the traps, he has to be made to be it. And I don't always feel like spending my time, like keeping white guys accountable on things they know better. Because with Kelly, it's not going to be an issue of knowledge. It's going to be an issue of backbone. It might not even be an issue of politics. But insofar as his politics inform his backbone, then it's an issue of politics because he doesn't think he should have to fight unless he's pressed. And we don't have the capital to always be pressing Kelly. And that's like a whole job in and of itself. So Kelly Girtz, I'm like, eh. All right, next one, Richie Knight. Richie Knight's a businessman. Richie Knight, he calls himself a businessman, which means this whole thing is a vanity play to get more business. He doesn't have a shot at winning. He's not going to win this. It doesn't matter. But what he does is get a lot of free press for his business. I mean, he's a libertarian talking about, like, you know, whatever. So, like, Richie Knight did this for, like, free press for his business. It's kind of, is this the right way?
He's at the ball, yeah.
So, Richie Knight, he's a young businessman, got a lot of free press for his business. Kind of blew up on him in a way that's kind of untoward. But I think he'll survive. And if he wanted name recognition and if P.T. Barnum or whoever is right and there's no such thing as bad press or whatever, it worked. So as a business decision, running for mayor was fine. Do not vote for this man. do not vote for Richie Knight.
I see Richie's signs. I'm like, why?
Like this is like why bother? Like at first I kind of like when Stacey Evans started running, I was like, why is she even bothering? Like what? Like, but like I believe in contested elections, so like I was like, I support someone running against Stacey Abrams. But like with Richie Knight, I know why he's running, and I'm fine with it. Fine with it. But like, do not pretend that he is going to govern, especially for us in the city. He does increase the discourse insofar as he talks about we need to start talking about how to hold the university accountable as a large employer and the hospitals accountable as a large employer. That's great because these other two have been habituated into bending over backwards for the university. And that's a problem. Is it this way or this way?
Yeah, that way.
This way. All right, so these two have been used to just giving the university and the employer anything they want. Yeah.
Also, haven't they been on the city council?
Decades. Yeah. Kelly, just about a decade. I think Sims a little bit more than a decade. So they're used to bad habits. They're used to the quality of governance that keeps black people poor. And I want a better quality of governance. I want the quality of governance that like actually. There are a few things, like I said, contracts and employees. The good way to talk about it is which one of these candidates is good for CNAs, certified nursing assistants. Who's good for CNAs? That's the question you should be asking yourself. So, who I support? I don't like the model of black politics that blames black people first. I like the model of black politics that blames black people last, right? So I worry that in Harry Sims, we're going to get the quality of black politics that symbolically is good, but keeps poor people poor, and honestly closes a lot. And this is going to be a very important next 4 to 8 years for the black community, because they're trying to get rid of us in Athens. They're trying to get rid of us. So who's going to put up that fight to keep our, not just our land, if we might own, but just people in public housing? They're trying to close public housing. And what happens when black people get kicked out of public housing? Well, we go to Oglethorpe County or Barrow County where there aren't as many services. And I've heard a very prominent black leader call that the Trail of Tears, like getting black people getting moved out of Athens into Barrow County. So who do you think we can make fight the developers? Who's going to be accountable? I don't know. In this, so in this race, it's going to be about who can I get kicked out? Who can I get kicked out? Who can I get kicked out? And the easiest person to get kicked out is going to be Kelly Girtz. This is the lowest, yeah. You're not going to be able to, no. Like once Sims gets in, it's going to take a crew to get him out, because he'll have all of the Republican backing, and like if you talk bad about him to black people, it'll be a problem. Hey, what's up, man? Come in. This isn't a this. I have problems with all three of these people. I've articulated that, and I've pretty much taken Richie Knight out of the race because I don't think he should be in the race. There's a business move for him. But in terms of Sims and Girtz, it's simply about who's going to be the easiest person to hold accountable. Who's going to be the easiest person to hold accountable and get rid of. Forget holding accountable. I want to be able to fire one of these guys in 4 years for reasons. And I think that might be Kelly Girtz. If you have a different opinion about who's going to be the easiest to hold accountable, vote with that different opinion. My opinion is I think I can pressure Kelly Girtz easier than I can pressure Sims. And that's the only reason I'm voting for Kelly Girtz. Not necessarily the reason you should. If you think you can pressure the other one more than you can Sims, then Girtz, then you vote for Sims. I've told you why. We're going to go to the next race. So, District 1. This is the second most important race in the ballot. I'm going to say some interesting thing about the Tommy and Oviedo race if you're going to stick around.
I'm going to go back to work.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say some interesting, the District 1 race, right? The most important race in the local election, second most important race I'm going to talk about. We have two people, one by the name of Patrick Davenport and the other Sharon Dickerson. Can you give me, we're going to give Dickerson first. All right, Sharon Dickerson. So Sharon Dickerson is a hard-working, she is a hard-working commissioner making black people poor. Like, she's a hard-working commissioner, and she's hustling for that money. Her idea of urban development is making sure the little boutique airport in Athens is built so that, like, white donors and football players can kind of fly in and see the game and then football game and then fly back out. Like, that's what economic development looks like for Sharon. I have huge problems with Sharon Dickerson because she's not dumb. She's actually really smart. She also is one of those people who, like, in every way pretty much blames black people for being broke. She said, like, look, previously about the labor market being fair, and if you work hard, you'll do fine. So black people, if you're generationally poor, it's because you don't know how to work. That's Sharon Dickerson. Sharon Dickerson reminds me of all right, so put the YMCA picture I did last week. So last week I did a whole show on this YMCA picture. This is a YMCA brochure from 1942 about how, it was an advertisement for them to, go ahead and put that below Sharon Dickerson's face. So this is a brochure from the YMCA in 1942. Now, understand that this was in the brochure. That means someone had to like take the picture, make the decision, make sure this camp happens, and get it done, right? Get it done, right? This was just a brochure, and I don't blame the kids throwing it. It's all the people like who had administrated who made sure that this was America in 1942. Sharon Dickerson's the kind of person who says like, all right, well, you look, if there's a toddler in that booth, that's because their mom put him there, and it's a decision the mom made, and we just got to get this done. So let's everybody just unify and let's have this program. Like, she's very good. She's very good. Like, this, in order to get this camp running, you need someone with organizational acumen. And Sharon Dickerson would supply that organizational acumen. I think of her kind of like, she's kind of like Eichmann, right? Like, in order to, Eichmann's famous because in order to carry off the Holocaust, you need to get a lot of Jews on trains, right? Like, it's an organizational feat. And like, you need someone who can rally the administrators to do it. And think of it just as a matter of business. And it's not easy to do. Sharon Dickerson has that kind of quality. She'd make a wonderful, like a modern day Eichmann. So she'd be wonderful in Nazi Germany. Like, a unified purpose, and let's do it for the development of the company. And like it's fine. Let's get it done. Not everyone can do that job. It takes a certain amount of quality of mind. She said, let's just get it done, and she could get it done. And if getting it done means paving over your house, black people, she will get it done. So that's Sharon Dickerson. So I have my problems with Sharon Dickerson. On the polar opposite, and I'll get both those back and give me Patrick Davenport. So yeah, that's Patrick Davenport. Patrick Davenport's a fantastic guy. He runs Peachtree Cleaning, which is a house cleaning service, pays his workers, it's a co-op, pays his workers fairly, and works with EJC, which is one of the most important groups in Athens, which actually cares about workers. So it's a race between someone who thinks that the only people who matter are developers versus someone who's built his entire business model off of like paying black women well. Like this is the difference. It could not be more. This is the most important race in Athens because you get Dickerson off and you put Patrick Davenport on. You have a politics that works for workers. You have a politics that works for all of those maintenance workers and fragilely employed at Walmart and at the university and at the hospitals. You have an ally for working Athens. And black people, we work, we just don't get paid for our work. So Patrick Davenport is my pick for the District 1 race. I think he's a great guy. And also, Patrick Davenport's another one that could use some help. So if you're in District 1 or in Athens, go out, and I think his campaign manager's name is Francis Berry. But if you go to the website, volunteer, kick in some money for Patrick Davenport. It's huge. These county races are decided like with a total of 700 votes for the winner, 700 to 1,000 votes for the winner. So we can beat Sharon Dickerson and just assume she has an infinite amount of money. So Patrick Davenport needs your time. Go ahead and donate your time to Patrick Davenport's campaign, and also donate your money because he could probably use that too. And just know that Sharon Dickerson is one of those folks who just does not care about you unless you have the money to matter to her. We're going to go to the next. We're going to have a brief interlude. I want to talk about some judges because I want to, like, now that I'm thinking about judges. So Regina Quick and Lisa Lott running for, I think, Superior Court Judge, I want to say. Regina Quick and Lisa Lott. Give them both. I'll just talk about them at the same time. And then gotcha. Quick. She's wearing red in the picture. All right, so I'll just talk about Lisa Lott. You got her? All right, so I'll just talk about Lisa Lott while you...
Yeah, I got you.
All right, that's her. All right, so Lisa Lott is a public defender. Cards at the table. She went to Berkeley, too, so we both went to Berkeley. I don't think that's biasing me. I'm going to keep talking. So Lisa Lott's a public defender. I want to normalize public defenders becoming judges, so she already gets a point there. I talked with her, and I have a problem because she tells people a bold-faced lie that the judiciary is not a political position. and that she just wants someone to administer the law. But the problem is I've studied this, and the judiciary is a hugely political position insofar as a law underdetermines its application, which means that it turns out that Republicans who don't like black people tend to sentence black people to more time than Democrats who do like black people. So it's not just applying the law, the politics matters, right? So like, that's an issue for me. So like that bit of fiction, I have a problem because she says that just because she wants the votes of people who are non-political, but that doesn't actually, that makes the electorate dumber because they get confused about the.
I think it's like a legal thing. I don't think they can.
No, they can. It wouldn't be on the ballot if they couldn't campaign.
But on the basis of political beliefs.
Yeah. This is why the interpretations are politically saturated, right? You can't say I'm going to vote for this because I'm a Republican, but your opinion is going to have politics infused in the arguments you choose to adopt for a particular opinion. So if you look at someone's politics, it will anticipate their interpretation of the law, because our interpretation of the law is political, especially since she's trying to get rid of mandatory minimums. That's going to track based on your political beliefs. Not your party platform, but just your political disposition. Insofar as reasonable people can disagree, and the arguments you give for that disagreement are going to be your politics. Right? So no, it's a political position. That's why we're voting on them. But yeah, the reason we pretend that judges aren't political is because judges don't have the kind of power we think they have. Since they don't control budgets and they don't control the cops, they have neither the power of the purse nor the power of the sword. They don't control the money nor the guns. So all they have is the aura. And so in order to get people to obey them, they have to like kind of depoliticize that aura. Because once people find out that they don't actually have to obey unpopular rulings, all hell breaks loose. For example, there's a reason why Brown versus Board of Education passed in the 50s, but Athens didn't desegregate until like the 70s, because they just didn't want to. They just didn't want to. You don't have to obey unpopular interpretations. There's a great book on this by Gerald Rosenberg called The Hollow Hope. Another book by McCluskey making similar arguments. But it's just about how judicial interpretation will never stray too far away from public opinion, because the judges know that if they do, their rulings will not be enforced, and we can't have Americans know that the emperor's robe, there's nothing in it. There's nothing under it, right? So there's nothing under those robes. So if you want to influence the judiciary, the best way to influence the judiciary is influence the populace, and the judiciary will follow, right? Judges are also scared of being overturned. So there are all these other like political dimensions that go into the interpretation, not just the law. However, I've talked a lot about Lisa Lott, who I'm going to end up endorsing. I don't hate Regina Quick. Right? I didn't know her as a Republican legislator, so I don't know. But she's, like, from what I've read, she does good by black men, which is kind of what I want in a judge. So I don't hate Regina Quick. The only reason I support Lisa Lott is because I want to normalize public defenders becoming, one, respected in the community, two, all right, so this is Allie Mauldin. So I met Allie Mauldin this weekend, and I've looked at her resume, and she has spent her adult life putting black men in jail. Like that's been her adult life. Like that's, yeah, and her husband's a DA, right? So like he's the Athens Clark County DA. So he's going to recuse himself if she gets elected to the judgeship. Put a whole adult life putting black men in jail. And when you have a law degree, you can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of things. And yet, putting black men in jail was what she chose to do with it. Like she was an assistant DA for a while. And even her charity work is really closely connected to putting black men in jail. It's in breaking up black families. So I like there are a lot of choices you make, and these choices have to have consequences. Did you have a picture of Norris?
Yeah.
All right, good. So the consequence of this of her choice to become a DA is like she's probably put more black men in jail than she has met campaigning. Because the event I met her at was just full of white people and me. She's made a job out of putting black men in jail, and there are just so many other jobs you can do with a law degree, and that choice has to have consequences. She has a lot of really fancy white friends, and probably like wannabe fancy black friends, but for the most part, probably not a lot, because because even the wannabe fancy ones have cousins that she's put in jail. I just think you have to get taxed for that career choice, an ongoing career choice. You didn't have to do that. And she wasn't like some revolutionary prosecutor. No, she was just one who was pretty good with putting black men in jail. And I talked to a public defender about her, and the public defender I talked to did not have kind things to say. And the public defender was not Lisa Lott. It was a different public defender. But the public defender said she's pretty much that awful white lady you think she is. And, some people say a whole lot of equal rights means we have white women putting black men in jail just like we had white men putting black men in jail. I don't think that's not what I want out of my progressive politics. So if you're voting for Ali Mauldin because, some sort of feminism that is cool with putting black men in jail, I guess. Next, Norris. All right, so I'm not in love with this guy either. He's a military guy. He's not averse to putting black men in. So you vote for who you like in this race. Vote for the person who you think, and like I said, in one of these kind of races where everyone just is kind of cool with treating black people like garbage, vote for who's easiest to get rid of next time when we want to run someone we like. So I don't know who's easiest to get rid of. I know if you elect Mauldin, her husband resigns, and we have a race for DA in Clark County, which isn't nothing. But I also know that she's going to be the kind of judge who finds all sorts of nice reasons to put black men in jail, while maybe donating to some charity.
They don't have the futures.
They don't have what?
They don't have the futures that the other people should.
Yeah, they don't have the futures. It's just she's an awful DA. She's an awful human being, and that's what she's done. No, that's what she's done with her life. These are choices she's made. She could have made other choices. I sound like Sims now. It's all about your choices. No, look, she lives a very comfortable life with very fancy friends. I just don't have to be one of them, and I don't have to vote for her, and I don't think you should too, because that choice should come with consequences. Next. So Norris, Mauldin, who's the easiest to get rid of? Next, we'll skip to District 2, Mariah Parker and Taylor Pass. Good. This is a good one. Mariah Parker is a hip-hop artist / UGA PhD student who is running for the District 2 commissioner. I like her spine. Whether you agree with her, whether you don't agree with her, you can turn around and go to sleep knowing that she's going to be the same person when you woke up than when you went to bed. And she's got a reasonably open mind. So I feel like I can talk to her, I can convince her with arguments, and then sleep well knowing that if she's convinced, someone else isn't going to be able to just buy her off. So that means something to me as a person who likes to sleep at night. Because she worked in defense of a worker at Cine. There was an article about Cine, one of the local nonprofit / movie theaters in town, who wasn't treating its workers of color as they should. And Mariah put in some time in defense of that worker and pressured Cine into doing right. And she also did some negotiation for one of the local charities in town. Am I speaking out of school? No, Mariah did negotiation for one of the charities in town and sweetened the deal. And that charity was helping out black youth. So she actually She has spine. She's not afraid of taking off white money, which is very important in this town because most people are. Most people are afraid of taking off white money. So just getting someone who's not afraid of taking off white money means something. All right? So I'm disposed to her, and then I'll bring up Taylor Pass. There's a picture of Taylor Pass and a whole lot of people, because when you elect Taylor Pass, you know, he's a big guy, so you're thinking, well, I'm electing a big guy. No, you're electing a troop. So I got a picture of Taylor Pass and all of his folk. Because when you elect Taylor Pass, you're not just electing Taylor Pass, you're electing a legacy. Like that whole, there's going to be one man sitting in the seat, but any opinions you get from that one man are going to be run by the entire clan, by the passes, which is good and bad. What's up?
The family name.
The family name is what? Neely. Yeah, you're electing a Neely seat, which is good and bad. I have no problem with black political families. I do have a little bit of a problem with dynasties for other reasons, but apparently their stewardship of political power has been fine, except black people have been getting poor over the last, 30 years. So I need Taylor Pass to actually have been talking about using government power to do what? Get black businesses contracts and support workers, right? So I need Taylor Pass talking about unions in Athens. Athens has at least three functioning unions. The UFCW does the Kroger and the chicken plants. The CWA does the university, and the ISTC, the stage workers union, stagehands union. So I need you empowering workers and talking about worker empowerment, because right now what I've heard you talk about is charities and how black people can be helped through charities. And that charity isn't going to be through black money because we don't have enough money to hold our institutions for reasons. So you're pretty much talking about how Athens can do better by black people by asking for white donations. And that's just not the quality of governance we need. I need you forcing the university to pay black people who work for them. I need you forcing the hospitals to pay black workers who work for them. We need jobs, not charity. And we don't need more scholarships, especially partial scholarships. That just means more black loans. So I need you forcing, using the power of government to force black people to get those contracts, and also empower workers. And if you're not doing that, you're not about my life. So Taylor Pass, what I do want you to do is take out Spencer Frye. Right? So here's what I'm saying. Taylor, you're not ready, or the Neely clan, get together and figure out how you're going to take out this guy. Can you give me a picture of Spencer Frye over there on the shoulder?
Is there someone or?
Yeah, I know a lot of white guys look similar. Yeah, that's him. That's him. So I need you in 2 years to take out Spencer Frye. Is he there?
Yeah.
Tap the bottom. Yeah. I need you to run out Spencer Frye. I need you to get rid of Spencer Frye. He's a problem. He's in the safest Democrat seat, as in it's all black people and a few rich white people, which means you can run a ham sandwich. As long as it has a Democrat after the name, you'll be elected. Athens has been gerrymandered against all Democrats except for Spencer Frye. So Spencer Frye is in the safest seat, doing the least amount of work. So Taylor Pass, I'm not going to support you this election, not because I don't believe in the Neely Pass connection, but because I need someone who I know has a record of getting in white people's face and using the power of whatever power she has to try to secure justice for black workers or get black people contracts. So I trust Mariah's spine, and I think you should too, because she might be the most revolutionary commissioner on that commission if we can get her elected. So Taylor Pass, nice work, brother. Take out Spencer Frye. Let's do this. Let's send you to Atlanta. But I want to send you to Atlanta in 2 years. And I want you to be using the power of talking about using the power of government to make black people whole by getting them contracts and employing workers, not just like a random Habitat for Humanity project or some sort of United Way project. So that's my take on the District 2 race. Now District 3, Melissa Link and Tony Eubanks. All right, so this isn't like I can barely. So give me a person. There's the red hair. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so like this is easy. Just vote for Melissa. All right, so not only have I heard sketchy things about Tony Eubanks' private life, which isn't political, just how he conducts himself in private, that are dicey to illegal. Forget that. But Melissa Link's actually pretty great. Not all the way great, because she's still, like, she'll fight against the grain, but at the end of the day, like, when someone says, well, come together and we'll all get along, she kind of comes together. And I have a problem because in the history of American politics, white civility, when white people get together with other white people across the divide, it's never good for us. Like, white civility got you the Missouri Compromise. White civility, when the Northerners wanted to get along with the Southerners, got you the end of Reconstruction. White civility got you the crime bill, the crime bill and welfare reform. When white Democrats want to be civil and reach across the aisle with white Republicans, it's never good for black people. White civility often equals black death. When white people are at war with each other and they keep the contradictions and they keep that war, like sometimes we can get a little, we can kind of move up in a little bit. We got the Civil War, we got Reconstruction. But when white people like fall for the come together, we'll all come together and do it together as a group, that's never good for us. And so Melissa Link kind of falls for that all come together a little bit too quickly, but still, she's better than most. Just vote for Melissa Link, because Eubanks hasn't shown me anything that makes me feel anything differently. Next, District 5, Jared Bailey. This guy might not even live in Athens. like, he's got an itty-bitty apartment in Athens and a big old house where his wife and kids stay in Oconee County. So, like, he might not even live in Athens, is what I'm saying. I suspect he lives with his wife and kids in Oconee County. I suspect he lives with his wife and kids in Oconee County. Which is like the next county over, the White Flight County. So, like, there's that. There's that. He's running against a guy, Tim Denson. All right, so Tim Denson ran for mayor a few years ago. For a while, I worried that the most progressive thing about him was his facial hair, which isn't sufficient. And if you don't watch out, if you're progressive about everything except black people, it ends up hurting black people. Just ask Michael Vick, who spent years in jail because of people who cared about dogs. So, like, I worry that Tim had a sensibility that wasn't serious about economic justice for black people, right? He was serious about symbolic justice, like you can get him talking about monuments and stuff. But in terms of like, we need to steer contracts to black businesses, in terms of we need to organize unions, especially in sectors that do black work, he wasn't about that life, and I needed him to be about that life. But he did organize Athens for Everyone, which is no small thing. And recently, I've seen him kind of change his tune, because for a while in Athens, there was a tune about like, look, as a city, white progressives knew that as a city, we can't really support ICE. And if any of our elected officials agree with ICE, like we have to vote them out. That's like improper, right? So as a city, that was the. Did I say something, or you just got to go for time? Oh, for time. Oh, it's okay. So I was worried that Tim was willing to fight the law for ICE to get rid of ICE, but not willing to fight the law to get black people contracts. Right? That's a popular progressive Athens ailment. We're willing to fight Trump for in defense of undocumented American residents, but we're not willing to fight Deal and Trump to just make sure to use political power to get black people contracts, and that or force people who want to do business in Athens to do business at a higher wage. But he's kind of changed his tune on that, and he's saying look, if we're actually going to do this if we're going to be maverick in terms of ICE, we need to be maverick in terms of getting black people economic security. So he's changed his tune on that, and that's why I'm going to end up supporting him on this race, because it's not just about stickers and monuments anymore. It's about using government power to get black people contracts. Just like we were willing to use government power to expect our government officials to deny ICE. So he's not scared anymore to use government power for black people's economic well-being. So I'm supporting Tim. Next we have, there's another person, Daniel Benson. Do I have Daniel Benson's? All right, so she's a hotel heiress, right? Heiress, as in her family owns many hotels. What's up?
I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah, no, the Benson Hotel Group. No, she's a hotel heiress. One more thing about the Tim Denson race. In a well-ordered world, Tim Denson's campaign manager, Brianna Bivens, would be running instead of Tim Denson. So, I have a little bit of an issue with that, insofar as if it's about gender representation, there was and you could say, well, maybe she didn't want to run. But honestly, have you been preparing her for 3 years to run? Because there's that too. So I'll just leave that there. Still voting for Tim Denson, but Brianna, I'm coming for you, and I want you to run. I don't have a picture of Benson. All right, so with Daniel Benson, she's a hotel heiress, right? So the progressive thing to do, what the Republicans have figured out, and the big money's figured out, is the best thing to be progressive and still keep black people poor is to put a white woman there. That way you get to be gender progressive, but we keep the money in the family and the contracts in the family. So that's what Daniel Benson is. She is, people are going to say well, gender diversity, but it's the kind of gender diversity that keeps black people poor. So she's there for big business, not there for us, not there for workers. So Tim Denson in that race, not Daniel Benson, and not Jared Bailey, who once again may not even live in Athens. Next, Russell Edwards, in the world's most boring race. So, all right, so I got 3 very forgettable white guys. And so forgettable, I couldn't even summon the will to get a picture of Bill Overend. So I got Russell Edwards, that's that one. Yeah. Russell Edwards he was a former chair of the Democratic Party. Does not mean he's going to get black people jobs or organize for workers. It just means he was a former chair of the Democratic Party, which means he, knows a lot of Democrats, for whatever that's worth. Here's what he is. Next we have Carl Blount. Now, Carl Blount gave a fascinating answer when asked about ethnic diversity in contracting and economic livelihood. Carl Blount says, well, he's a white guy.
This is the last white guy that we haven't shown.
Well, he might be the last white guy we haven't shown. If you don't find a picture of him, I was about to say, just put up another picture of Tom. No, but that's not fair. That's not. You look different. There are differences. I don't have a problem. I don't have a picture. All right, so I'm going to end up endorsing. I would vote for Russell if I win that. So Carl Blount's a nice guy. And over Carl Blount? Oh, you're surprised I'm endorsing Russell? Carl? Yeah. All right, so Carl's answer when asked about economic diversity making sure that contracts and workers and economic inclusion in Athens' $8.5 billion GDP, making sure black people get their fair cut. He said, well, look, I, as a white guy, I think I should just listen and not talk. But I'm going to actually need you to have an opinion about that, because the reason black people are broke in Athens is because of county governance. So, like, if you're not willing to talk about that, then that's just an inappropriate answer. Not a damning answer, because like Russell's no whatever, but that's kids. All of them? Yep. Oh, thank you. I'm going to edit that out. My kids. All right, so, holy shit. Good. All right, so, Russell, Carl Blatt. Yeah, so Russell's no prince, but if I were in that race, sure. Best thing about Russell is if a real person comes in that race in 4 years, we get him out. And we let him know, so maybe we don't have to, but like mostly if a real person comes in that race, we get him out. All right, District 9. Go Russell, District 9. District 9. District 9, we have Tommy Valentine and Ovita Thornton. Give me Tommy first. Okay. Tommy Valentine is a talented little dude. You might know him as, he was a hip-hop artist?
I wouldn't call him that.
He was a hip-hop, all right, so nobody knows him as a hip-hop artist. Tommy V. And the cross colors and the whole thing, you can't see it? Can't see him? So, so Tommy V, the hip-hop artist. Tommy V also has roots in Athens. He went to Gaines, he went to Hillsman, he went to Cedar Shoals. Like anybody who says Tommy V doesn't know black people, Tommy V's been around black people his whole life. So his racial politics, whatever they are, it's not because he's not known or comfortable around black people. Black people who are watching this, those white people who are comfortable around black people versus white people who are kind of scared of black people. For example, like Allie Mauldin, most comfortable around black people when she's putting them in jail. Tommy Valentine, comfortable around black people. He's been around black people. So whatever that's worth, there's that. Don't let anyone tell you that Tommy Valentine doesn't know black people, because he does.
He will tell you.
And he will tell you. Because like it's easy to tell him, well, you're just a white guy running against a black woman, so no, but Tommy's not that guy. He's a different guy. And he built an independent political machine for this like little itty bitty race that's going to be 1,000 people. Tommy Valentine has built like what can be like a congressional campaign. Like this is a high school election. And he hired like a darn good staff, efficient staff, and he treats them well. And one of his staff members, and I'll give you the picture of Mariah. One of his staff members was a campaign manager, Mariah, who got so used to the political process, she realized I can run myself. And what I say, one of the reasons I do this podcast is I want to teach people how to govern. Right? I want to grow the quality of electorate and grow the capacity of the electorate. I want to teach people how to govern. Tommy did that so much that one of his staff members, he paid for her to go to trainings. He raised money and then like invested it in people. He did that so much that Mariah herself is running in District 2. And she's a good person running. She's not just like taking up space. So when I say I want to teach people how to govern, and that's what your organization should be doing, Tommy's done that with his campaign. And I'm actually proud of his campaign for that. And he's not... he actually has an economic agenda that agrees with actually growing wealth in the black community, at least getting black people jobs and contracts. So, and then now I got Ovita Thornton. Now, Ovita Thornton has been in the community for years. Also, let me just talk a little bit about Tommy one more time. Tommy's got a checkered past insofar as he supported some dicey candidates in the past, and he did it for money, right? So he ran Sharon Dickerson. Give me Sharon Dickerson on my other side. Sharon Dickerson's awful, right? So she's like the worst commissioner for black people on the commission. And he ran her campaign because she paid him a good salary to do it, but he didn't. Like, there are a lot of jobs. Tommy's very talented. He could have taken other jobs, but he was like, I'll run Sharon Dickerson's campaign. And that's a huge minus because Sharon Dickerson, getting her elected, has done damage for the movement. And I don't know if Tommy's owned that in the way that he should. Also, he had a chance to run against Sharon Dickerson in his district. Instead, he moved to a different district because he didn't want to take out Sharon or didn't want to have to deal with all of Sharon's friends. Because Sharon has a lot of friends, and a lot of her friends have money because and a lot of them are very well connected. Pretty much white ladies who spend more than $75 on their hair. She's got that set locked. More than $75 on their haircut and get it done. Maybe I'll up that. I don't. $125. $125. All right. So if you spend more than $125 on your haircut, Sharon Dickerson, you're voting for her. Thing is, I know my people in Athens, and they don't have it like that. So, and you get the haircut more like every 3 weeks or so. So if you're spending that kind of money on your haircut, like you're voting for Sharon Dickerson. Tommy Valentine didn't want to tick off that set by running against Sharon Dickerson. Instead, he decided, I'll move out of Sharon Dickerson's district and run against Ovita Thornton. All right? So that is a dicey decision. And that's a dicey decision that has consequences. You're going to hear about those consequences. Because Ovita Thornton is nobody's fool. And it's unfortunate that Tommy made that decision to run against her because he thought he would be easier in the long term because you're not going to tick off as much money as you would if you ran against Sharon. So that's what's going on there. So Ovita Thornton. I wanted to like Ovita Thornton. Problem is she's been in the town. She's been in the town. She moved from Philly. So anybody tells her like she's been here forever. No, she's been here for a while, but she moved here from Philly. She, like me, is from a city and then came here and started making moves. So Ovita is very good at circumventing accountability measures. And that's a problem. All right? So if you have, and I say that one of my priorities is don't elect anybody you can't get rid of. Don't elect, but if you elect Ovita, it's going to take a team of engineers to get rid of her. She's going to be there until she feels like giving it away. And that I have a problem with. Also, she was in school board for a stretch. And in that time, I worry that she used the position as kind of a concierge service. And I say that insofar as she was very good helping people out one-on-one. Very good helping people out on one-on-one. In terms of public advocacy, not so good. Because I actually think she's scared of taking off white people. Like it's a disease publicly. And you do that and like money dries up. And if you're involved in fountains and foundations, that's one thing. Also, speaking of that, I too have to pay rent. So if you like anything I'm doing, go on ahead to thefunkyacademic.com, kick in for a monthly, because I do this every week, and I pay rent every month. And I'd like to pay Matthew more and kind of grow the business, and I want a physical press. And I think it's important what I do. If you're watching this by now, because I've been going for longer than an hour, you think what I do is important too. You also think it's very entertaining. So thank you. Go to funkyacademic.com and kick in for a monthly because I want to grow this. Also, just in case my YouTube or Facebook something happens to me, go on to my website, thefunkyacademic.com, and sign up for my email list. It says subscribe. Just put your name and email in there. Sign up for my contact list, and That way, if something happens to me on the other social media sites, I can find you when I get on Instagram or something. I don't know. I can send out an email newsletter. I'm not on Instagram, but maybe I should be. The kids are, and I don't know what WhatsApp is. So, Ovida Thornton. All right, so she's very good at using political offices to help individual people out. So, like, if your cousin needs a job as a hookup, she can do that. That's a sign of being in a failed state. Like when your government, instead of does political stuff like in public through the press, you have to do everything behind the scenes because your state doesn't work. All right? So black people live in a failed state in Athens. State works for white people. They get to do things in the press. Black people, we got to do things one-on-one. But that's not going to be the quality of governance that we need going forward. So I worry that that concierge model of governance isn't working. And that's the reason why, as she's been here for decades, black poverty has been rising. It's now, at, depending on who you talk to, 32 or 38%. I heard 40% recently. So like, the concierge model of politics isn't working, this one-on-one. We need policies, and we need public advocacy. And Ovida's not about that substantive public advocacy life, because I don't think she wants to be unpopular. And if you don't want to be unpopular, especially with white money, there's just a limit to what you can do. And I think she's hit that limit. Also, she does not like accountability measures. Like, you organize a debate with Ovida involved, pretty soon she makes phone calls, and the debate turns into a town hall, or it turns into a forum. And then if you organize a forum with Ovida, pretty soon she makes phone calls. Then pretty soon, well, you know, we really should have a meet and greet instead of a forum. So like, Ovida doesn't like accountability measures. And when I say only endorse someone you can get rid of, she is very good at making it the case that you're not going to be able to get rid of her. She also has a problem with saying things that some people want to hear and then saying other things that other people want to hear, depending on the political winds. Well, pretty much depending on what works for her. So, right, so before she was a progressive, like, against cooperating with ICE, and now she is in favor of cooperating with ICE, and now she's taken that off. Problem is, I've screenshotted it. So, gotcha. I screenshotted it. So, I got you. And now, apparently, she pulled it back, so she's, now, did she take that out? She's not in favor. Did she take that out? Is that what I'm saying? No? Yes, say it. You can say it in the microphone. No, but see, if people are scared to talk about you, that means you're either doing something really well or doing something really poorly. Yes, in the microphone, Marcus. Do it, or don't do it. Has she taken the ICE thing out, in support of ICE out?
My understanding from speaking to Ovida about the ICE situation
you have to hold it like a shotgun.
She supports the sheriff
Committee.
Well, no, the sheriff himself. The committee?
It was on the platform.
Okay, she supports the sheriff.
Like, she believes he's done a good job. They disagree on this particular matter, such as his cooperation, but that is his job to interpret.
Okay, so Sheriff Ira Edwards wants to cooperate with ICE. I have complicated feelings about that. But she said she didn't have complicated feelings about it, and then now she has complicated feelings about it. It's hard to keep this accountable. It's hard to keep her accountable. Like, she's very good. She's very, very, very good about skirting accountability measures. And that's a problem with me and an elected official. So I want an elected official I can get rid of. And Tommy V, the hip hop star, if he doesn't act right, if he's not like publicly advocating for black people to get contracts or like working, I can bounce him. He's done. Ovida, there's nothing she can do or say that's gonna like motivate a campaign to get rid of her. So that's the issue there. So you make your decision. I think Tommy's easier to bounce. I think Ovida's done very good concierge work in the community, but one-on-one governance isn't actual governance. It's using public power for like a private hookup. And that just, we need too many people to be hooked up in Athens. We need to actually you to make the electorate smarter about what the work government can do. And I need you in the press doing that. And if you're not going to be in the press doing that, maybe I don't need you in that position. No more backroom governance. Backroom governance is not good for black people. It might be good for a black person who then gets their come up and moves to Winder, but it's not good for black people. And black people need an advocate. So that's District 9. Make your own choice. If I win the choice, I think I'd get Tommy just because I can get rid of him. But I understand votes for Evita. And I also understand people who think Tommy's dicey because he could have run against Sharon Dickerson and chose not to. So that's why I am there. Next race. If you're in District 9, vote for Josh McCall. And...
School board.
Oh, school board. School board. School board. District 1, Greg Davis running on he's an incumbent. He does good work. He's fine. Fine. And next, Linda Davis. No relation, but are there only 5 names in the South? I feel like this wasn't my problem in California, but ever since I moved here, there's only 6 last names. Linda Davis is what it is. Complicated. I think she could be more progressive, but I don't think she's a problem. So Linda Davis, fine, good. Linda Davis, keep on trucking. District 5, Imani Scott-Blackwell and Kara Dyckman. Right. So Imani Scott-Blackwell, you might recognize her if you've seen this show because she co-hosts when I have to go do other things. She's talented. Philosophy soon to be graduate at UGA, but she's not 21, she's older. She's worked with kids, and she's great. She's great. And more importantly, she actually has policy knowledge and interest in how do we make education so it works for black people. Because you know what? Athens, Clark County has the same issue that all of the districts have black people. We're locked out of GATE programs, and we're disproportionately punished. So all of the bad things in school, we don't get the good things, and we get too much of the bad things. That's a problem for at least me. It should be a problem for you. And that's our school board. And our school board should be a little bit more active in it. Imani gets it. And more importantly, give me Kara Dyckman too. All right, so, and when asked about what her priorities were in CCSD, Imani said, clearly, we need to start getting better about racial and economic justice and social justice in the classroom. And that's the right answer because the problems in CCSD are not, and the problems that come out of CCSD are not a matter of a lack of technical education. And the reason black people are poor over generations is not a lack of technical education. The problem is in the political distribution of goods. And so the power and the techniques and the strategies that students need and teachers need to be teaching students aren't necessarily about the right-hand rule. They're about how to lobby to get the contract for your community. They're about how to use political power, not necessarily ohms or hertz, but political power to get your fair share of the $8.5 billion. So it's not our technical education that's wanting, it's our political education that's wanting. Black men are not disproportionately punished. Black men are not disproportionately punished in CCSD because they lack technical education. They're disproportionately punished because the black community lacks the quality of political education that will win freedom for black people. So insofar as Imani's committed to making that kind of political education for justice a part of public education, the quality of education we need to be citizens, I support Imani Scott-Blackwell. Kara Dyckman, on the other hand, wants to say, like, well, we need data-proven solution. That's her. She's a social scientist who believes in data. And pretty much she's the white lady who was conscripted into this role to run against Imani Scott-Blackwell. Right? So white moms got nervous. They found one of their own, ply them with their own and their husband's money. And so that's why Kara Dyckman's running, to run against Imani Scott-Blackwell. I at least have a problem with that. I at least have a problem with the fact that the white moms at Chase got so nervous that they wanted one of their own to run, one of them who understood their concerns to run. And so I'm saying not only should you support Imani Scott-Blackwell, we need to match that white Chase Street money with white ally money and black people. If you have some dollar bills, you can send it to Imani too. So I need you to actually donate to Imani Scott-Blackwell's campaign because she's fighting for the quality of education we need. You can clip that out and put that on your Facebook if you want to. I need you donating to Imani Scott-Blackwell's campaign because she's fighting for the quality of education you need in order for us to be whole. That's because once again, the problem isn't technical education, it's political education, and Imani Scott-Blackwell is voting for the quality, is supporting the quality of political education we need. And Neely Fuller, actually, I say this quote a lot because it needs repeating. Neely Fuller said that, look, until you understand white supremacy, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. So I'll say that again. Until you understand the works of white supremacy in our schools, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. So we don't want any of our students to be confused. That means we need to teach the workings of white supremacy in our classrooms. And we need a school board that actually isn't afraid to admit that. There you go, that's that. So vote for Imani Scott-Blackwell and do better than vote for Imani Scott-Blackwell. Donate to her campaign because all the six-figure moms are donating to Kara Dyckman's campaign, who's fine for who she is, but the fact that she's there just to beat Imani is a problem, for at least me. Should be a problem for you. Next is Lakeisha Gant, and I forgot to get a picture of Lakeisha Gant. Lakeisha Gant and, losing my voice, Lakeisha Gant and Carol S. Williams. I do have a picture of Carol S. Williams because everyone who's giving money to Sharon Dickerson really hopes that Carol S. Williams wins. Opposite side of the town, but like same class. So Carol S. Williams, real estate agent in town. You would think that maybe she spent the last year talking about how we need to talk about the truth about redlining and do that in schools. And maybe she's used her position to talk about how we need to talk about like financial crisis and how that disproportionately affected black people and how real estate agents were kind of complicit in that whole thing because like she would know because she was a real estate agent, but I don't think she's been advocating for that quality of education in our policy, in our schools. So, you know, there's that. Also, Lakeisha Gant is fantastic. Lakeisha Gant is fantastic. She actually studies the disproportionate punishment of black people. Like she's a doctor, Dr. Lakeisha Gant. She grew up in, you know, the community, spent some time in public housing, went to schools in Athens, Clarke County, and now realizes that being a loophole, being an exception means that she's got to try to lift her people up. So I'm supporting Lakeisha Gant because the biggest problems in Athens, Clarke County schools are the disproportionate punishing of black people and the failure to talk about the racialized punishing. And she's not scared to do any of that. So Lakeisha Gant, I think she's fantastic. And if you just met her, like she also is the kind of black person that white people like because she's very well-spoken and polite, but she's got the fire in her. So I'm supporting Lakeisha Gant over Carol S. Williams. Plus, Carol S. Williams has been there for a while, and maybe it's time for her to go. So thank you for your service. Vote for Lakeisha Gant. Good luck, Lakeisha. You do our kids proud. Tawana Maddox is running unopposed, but she's awesome, right? Like, she can do both the concierge service business as in helping individual black people, but also she's not afraid to talk about how we need policies, and she's not afraid to talk in public about how we need policies that redress some of the institutional racism that is taught and reproduced in our schools. So Tawana Maddox is fantastic. I'll track down a picture and put it on the video. So yeah, she's running unopposed, so I guess to end on an up. So I'm going to run through them real quickly if you want paying attention. The governor's race. People think it's more important than it is, but in general, but still you should vote for Stacey Abrams. Then District 10, this is hugely important because we're on the cusp of a movement that for a federal job guarantee, and Winfield will make the electorate smarter by making arguments for both a federal job guarantee and legal care, because if you don't have access to a lawyer, you don't really have rights. So a public option for lawyers, and also a federal job guarantee, because if you don't have an income, you're just food for people who have a real income. And a real income. He wants it at $20 an hour doing public service work. Because the only commodity you have is your labor as someone without land, and you need to be able to sell that labor in order to participate in market society at a fair price in working conditions that you have a fair say in. Winfield understands that. Montgomery just found out what a union was, I don't know, 2.5 weeks ago. So, and then after that, it's local races. For mayor, you pick. Who's going to be the easiest to be accountable? Who's going to be the easiest to hold accountable? Harry Sims or Kelly Girtz? I think Kelly Girtz is, so I'm going to vote for Kelly Girtz just because I know I can get rid of Kelly Girtz. If you think Harry Sims is, that's on you. Harry Sims, I have a problem with him because he's one of those black guys who's made an entire career out of blaming black people first. He says he loves them, but then he blames them first for the generational poverty that's just been etching up. And he doesn't blame himself as a public leader. So that's a problem with at least me. Then Mariah Parker, Taylor Pass. Vote for Mariah Parker. Taylor Pass, please run against Spencer Frye in 2020 for the House Rep seat. I think you can do great work. I think Mariah Parker can do better work in the county governance. Better political work. But keep up the work, brother. All right, so Melissa Link as Attorney Eubanks. Vote for Melissa Link. Jared Bailey, Tim Denson, Danielle Benson. People are going to call, this is weird, people are actually going to call me a misogynist for not voting for the heiress. I don't think you should vote for the heiress. Instead, I think Tim Denson should have stepped down and had his campaign manager, Brianna Bivens, run in his stead. But since Tim didn't, you should vote for Tim because he's got chops and he actually understands the power government can have. Then there's Russell Edwards. You should, are you getting the pictures up for these people? Yeah. All right, so you can get Russell Edwards versus in District 7, Russell Edwards, Bill Overend, and Carol Blatt. Should vote for Russell Edwards. He's fine. And that's it, which means when Russell starts doing nothing, get rid of him in 4 years. Commission 9, Tommy Valentine and Ovita Thornton. Vote for the person you think you can hold most accountable. Ovita Thornton's very good at skirting accountability measures. So I can't full-throatedly vote him. And Tommy Valentine is bad at saying no to white money, which means that when the white money starts talking, he has backbone right up until it's time to say no to white money, and then he's like, oh, I might need that white money later. So I have my problems with Tommy. But I'd vote for Tommy just because I think he's easily to be held accountable, and because I'm a very smart guy. I have no idea how you hold Ovita Thornton accountable. No idea. She's very good at skirting accountability measures. She is as good at that as I am at anything, and I do a lot of things. Linda Davis, school board. Sharon Dickerson and Patrick Davenport. Most important race at the county level. Please support Patrick Davenport. Tell your friends to support Patrick Davenport. You know what? Throw a party for Patrick Davenport. Throw a party for Patrick Davenport to come over and make his pitch to all of your friends, and like tell your friends to bring their checkbook, because we don't have access to the white capital that Sharon Dickerson has. So like Patrick Davenport's an excellent person. He's getting outspent and he's getting out connected just because old connections are real connections in Athens and old money is real money. So, but Patrick Davenport's the one we want representing us because he's the one who cares about workers. School board, Amani Scott-Blackwell, it's another one. Not only should you vote for her, you need to give her money. Lakeisha Kant, definitely vote for her and tell your friends too because she's wonderful. Tawana Maddox, you don't have an option but to vote for her, but you get to vote for her, which is great because she's great. Lisa Lott, in terms of judges, not that I hate Regina Quick. I don't hate Regina Quick. Is that fair, Broderick? Have you heard it? Like, you've been around Regina Quick?
Districts in 2000.
So she was in charge of making the gerrymandered district and definitely didn't fight against it. So at worst, she's a party hack. She'll do what the Republicans tell her to do. But I don't hate Regina Quick. I do like Lisa Lott. I like her record, and I like her personally. And I like her politics. I like her mind. I like the fact she was a public defender. I like a lot of things about her. And the lawyers I've worked with who I like also like working with her. So that means something. Eric Norris, Allison Mauldin. Allison Mauldin spent her entire adult life putting black people in jail. Has not made her at all unpopular with her white friends. It needs to make her unpopular with the electorate. So you just don't get to do that on my watch. So sorry, you should have picked another career choice. And according to the people I've talked to, she likes it a little bit too much. So it's not that she just kind of puts black people in the jail. She likes it. Allison Mauldin, she's running for judge. Don't vote for her. Eric Norris. All right, so maybe don't vote for him either. So vote for the person you think you can get rid of. No. Regina Quick is running against Lisa Lott, and for Superior Court judge, there's 2 judge spots opening up. And Regina Quick is running against Lisa Lott. Vote for Regina Quick is running against Lisa Lott. Eric Norris is running against Allison Mauldin. So in the Quick Lott race, go Lott. In the Norris Mauldin race, go. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Are those different districts?
Yeah, they're different. Yeah,
Okay.
different circuits. All right, so good. I think I've done all the things. I want to give a quick shout out to Deborah Gonzalez as most improved. Deborah Gonzalez, you're doing good things. Yes. You're doing good things. I wasn't convinced you had it in you to do good things, and when I say you're doing good things, she's actually taken the office as a way to educate the populace. Because when you're a minority party member at the state level, you can't really push policy through. But what you can do is educate the populace in a way that, 1, secures your seat, and 2, actually makes a better Georgia electorate. And she's taken that seriously. So Deborah Gonzalez, I told all 3 of the Democrat state reps in the area to do that, but Deborah Gonzalez and her staff are the only people who do it. So Deborah Gonzalez, you get a pat. You get a fist bump or whatever. You're doing your job. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Good. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed the endorsements. Peace.